Hi everyone. So my reaction towards the readings, the podcast, and the video that we had was I was surprised learning all the information from the immigration laws and what the immigrants had to go through to come into the United States and what they suffered back in the 19th century and the 20th century. Um, I could provide some examples as to what I was surprised and I didn't know about before reading these readings. One of them was learning about the quarantine process, how immigrants before they were allowed to enter the U.S., they had to get bathed. They were scrubbed with a special chemical. They were also stripped down naked. Of course, if it was a female immigrant, they would go with female official, or if it was a male, they would go with a male. But the fact that they still had to be stripped naked in front of someone else that you didn't know, and they would wash their clothes with also a special chemical, but it was returned to them all wrinkled. And some of these immigrants were crossing the bridge because they had to come work to the United States. Um, and Mexican immigrants were viewed as being scruffy and, and just being contagious. And I honestly disagree with that because it's not just the Mexicans that we have as immigrants. We have other immigrants from China, from, Africa, and we could also say that, they could be seen as scruffy and contagious because they could also be carrying a disease that are coming to the United States, and they're contaging everybody else here. Another example that I was surprised about was, the requirements they had to meet before they were allowed into the United States. They had to meet a literacy test. They had to agree with certain requirements. They also had to pay a fee, an $18 fee, and that would give them um, allowance to come into the United States and do what they had to do. It was really shocking and surprising to know that their pass was to pass the test, and um, they had to pay for their entrance. Um, Up to a certain point, I do agree with everything that we have our border patrol doing to avoid immigrants coming in. But I see other immigrants, because we see some immigrants that are telling us, oh, yeah, I need to come, I'm scared of being at whatever country they are in, or they want to better their lives and their families. And, we can't tell whether they're lying or they're not. But then again, we have those immigrants they say the same thing, but then they come to the United States and they're committing crimes. So it's hard to, believe them to in reality what business they have here in the United States. And, you know, another thing is that, Americans would say that Mexicans are taking over their jobs. A lot of jobs that the Mexicans have is that hardworking labor jobs. How many Americans right now want that? They don't like working hard for the money. And Mexicans will do anything to be here in the United States so they could better their lives. But then yet they're here bettering their lives, and then in an article we read that they've been here for so many years, and ICE goes and picks them up and deports them over to their country, even though they were born here in the United States. Because according to the laws, that Mexicans are better off in their own countries and working with their own people. So you know what? This ties into race, and race has a big role in all these readings, videos, and podcasts that we read. An example of this could be the quota system. The quota system, the definition of it is only a certain percentage of other countries for the immigrants are allowed here in the United States. Once that quota is met for all countries, we can accept any immigrants. And, you know, with this quota, and even when immigrants are wanted to get deported or are going to get deported, they came up with repatriation, and that's the definition to them was that the immigrants will leave out of the country willingly, voluntarily. But yet we have ICE going and knocking on the immigrants' doors and picking them up and taking them over to their country, to their border. And it's just raises a big thing with the immigration laws. So how can we tie all this reading and the podcast and the video to what's going on now? Is currently we have an influx of immigrants here in the United States, and it's a big thing because we keep having caravans. Border Patrol keeps arresting immigrants for coming in illegally, and like I said before, these immigrants, they're seeking asylum because they're running the crime, and they just, they're scared. They're just scared about all the violence currently going on in Mexico, all the killings that there is, and they want to come to the United States. But an example of how one of these, how an example that I could provide of how the immigrants are coming in and supposedly wanting to better their lives is currently on the news. I heard about the lady Frijoles. This lady came on a caravan from another country. I'm not too sure from where. I want to say Honduras, but I'm not too sure. And they called her Lady Frijoles because she was complaining that they were only giving her beans to eat. And somehow she ended up, renting an apartment or living here in the El Paso. And currently, her and her sister, they ended up getting arrested because they started stealing and they threatened someone. So how is that? How can we accept people like that? There should be a way how you know that we could really determine that immigrants are coming here to better their lives, and it's not only their lives, it's their family lives.